or one phrase you wanted to describe the current food trend. David?
Evolving at pace.
Praful?
Craving convenience.
Ellen?
Exciting.
Great. And again, a phrase for your advice to the startups.
Yeah. Patience.
Praful?
Adapt the new normal.
Ellen?
Do your research.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new edition of Sustainable Future Food Series. I welcome all the viewers for another exciting panel discussion today. Looking at the interest of a lot of brands across the globe, we thought of putting in this panel discussion around the global consumer trends in food. We have seen that consumer preferences in food have been changing a lot over the decades. However, in recent years, with so much of more information flowing through various channels, particularly social media, consumers have been keen to switch over to healthier options. If anything, the recent pandemic has only accelerated this process. So keeping this in mind, without further ado, I would also take this opportunity to introduce the moderator for today's session, Mr. Raj Kamal Sharma. Mr. Raj is an international business consultant. He has had a distinguished career in FMCG industry with stints in Unilever and Nestle. He is retired a couple of years ago from Nestle, where as the head of exports, he was a part of the management committee. He has an extensive experience in procurement, manufacturing, supply chain, and other functions, but his core competence has been sales and marketing. Currently, he is working as a country manager for Global Appetite, which is a Canadian company, and he's helping them develop their international business. He advises several small and medium-sized companies on product and packaging development, communication strategy, channel development, and other aspects towards the objective of enabling business development both in India and abroad. I would now hand over the mic to Raj sir for introducing the key speakers for today. Over to you, Raj sir.
Thank you very much, Arihant. And well, as you said, good afternoon. But it's also my pleasure to wish the co-panelists. We have Ellen from UK. So Ellen, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Praful, who is sitting in Dubai. So good afternoon, Praful.
Good afternoon.
And David, who is sitting in Melbourne. So good evening to you. I think that's reflective of the very interesting and global representation of our panelists today. So that's not only a benefit that we will derive from their regional, let's say, location, but also the food habits in the various parts of the world that we will get to hear of. Let me take this opportunity to quickly introduce the panelists. David is a founder of 3 B2B food industry support businesses. He has helped clients achieve more than $1 billion of revenue during his journey in the food space. He became an entrepreneur at the age of 12. If I could just repeat that, he became an entrepreneur at the age of 12 and has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs set up businesses in Australia and other parts of the world. He also worked with some large retail giants such as Coles and some other organizations. Let me take Ellen next, who's second farthest from us as we are sitting today. Ellen started his food and drink journey in 1987 with Clover Dairy in South Africa, and had a variety of roles from sales representative, special events, sponsor coordinator, area sales manager, regional sales manager, including export national accounts for fresh products. He relocated to the UK in 1996, where he spent time with Groupe Ladef, Adley's Poultry, Suffolk Foods, English Provender Company. In 2005, he joined Tyrrell's Potato Chips, where he launched the product into the international markets. In 2007, he was awarded the Food from Britain Export Inspiration Award. In 2008, Ellen formed Epicurean International, working with British brands such as Dr. Stewart's Teas, Stokes, Shotbread House of Edinburgh, and Chase Distillery. Since then, he has worked in senior international roles in both UK and South Africa with brands such as Chocolate Tray, United Biscuits, and Godiva or Godiva. Praful is a ground-up specialist, has helped a lot of startups. He has 24 years experience spanning India, Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia across SBU management. And he's been a sales, marketing, and business development person. Also has made a progression from market and brand development to helming the organization as regional CEO. He has been in Dubai for 20 plus years and has been a part of food, non-food FMCG and wellness companies like Himalaya, Kevin Care, VLCC, operating across MEA, currently engaged with his own setup in B2B and B2C food space called Foodcraft, and specializes in the GCC and Africa region representation of global food brands that have unique offerings. So welcome all the panelists, and let's get on with the topic of today. I think it's very obvious that consumer preferences, consumer habits, they change from generation to generation, be it technology products, be it personal care products, and be it food. Food, of course, is something which can be a very, very personal thing. And not only because we are talking here about food, so I'm just going to focus on that. Food preferences definitely change from one generation to another. They change from one decade to another. And in recent years, in the 21st century, with all sorts of information that has flown through social media, through the internet, consumers have been really exploring, I would say, the healthy nutrition foods more than ever before. And if anything, the recent pandemic, in fact, accelerated it, because I think people were started looking for food that is hygienic, is of course healthy, nutritious, and also helps them to develop immunity. So that's an interesting sort of, let's say, journey that food has taken. If I may ask our panelists, and David, I'm going to start with you, only because you are, farthest east from here and nearing your bedtime. What would you say are the most important trends that we are seeing in the 21st century, and particularly in the last couple of years, as far as food is concerned?
Yeah, look, it's an area I'm very passionate about. I think the way I talk about trends is, particularly in the health area, is talking about the human anatomy and the key parts of our human body that are becoming most important to consumers, and they are the gut health, brain health, and our largest organ, which is our skin. And then more recently, to your point, in the last 18 months, it's very much become, stress, sleep, anxiety. So in my mind, that's where it begins, and then begins the process around what are the opportunities out there that are going to address these issues in these really key areas of our general health. And then obviously, even though those areas are very high growth, there's still an enormous amount of opportunities in the mainstream side of life as well. In the recent times, big movement in comfort foods. So in Australia, for example, we have a very, very big pie culture of pies. We eat so many pies down here, it's not funny. And it's probably most of the success I've had. Well, my most successful brand that I've been working with is actually a pie manufacturer. So, it's back on the health side. There's liquor as well. As you know, liquor. Big movement around alcohol-free, cleaner alcohol, alternatives to alcohol. It's a really interesting world, but an enormous amount of opportunities for sure.
So, is there like a demand for kosher certified or halal certified products? I mean, you mentioned alcohol substitutes.
Yeah,
but
we have.
It's not that level yet.
Yeah, there's pockets of Australia that kosher is definitely needed for sure. Absolutely, that's an opportunity, but it's not a mainstream opportunity. It's just pockets of the market that do need kosher and similar certifications as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll come back to you with further discussion on the trends, but let's move to Praful. Praful, what about the Middle East and African markets? Where are the trends going there?
Well, these markets are no different, to be honest, as compared to anywhere else in the world. While we would like to talk and discuss about what general consumer trends are, I would actually like to superlate it by saying that I think it's far more important for us to discuss the new normal that we all are living, and how long would that new normal continue. None of us really can predict at this point of time, and I'm sure David will agree with me that around a month back, David was sitting absolutely happy and pretty, and didn't know that anything like what's happening right now in his part of the world would ever happen. So the situation is very, 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 very dynamic and is changing across the world. And same is what has happened in this part of the world as well, where I come from. If you see the trends, the way they have moved on from, we guys used to be very lavish in terms of whatever we looked at, whether it was lifestyle or food. I think that lavishness or the expectation of having everything very glittery has now started to take certain amount of focus on safety, wellness, longevity, taking good care of yourself. So earlier, taking good care in this part of the world primarily meant that you should be taking good care of yourself externally, but you need to be well within from inside is something that has changed dramatically and drastically in past 18 months or so. I'm sure it has changed across the world, but in this part of the world, we have seen a dramatic change happening. And that's why the foods that really are falling in the category of healthier options, we have seen a tremendous amount of increase in those food options, and that trend seems to be continuing.
So give us a couple of examples. What do you mean by these healthier options?
So if you look at, I'm nobody to judge whether the claimed foods are genuinely healthier options or not. But if one would have to go by what one sees across everywhere, the trends of people looking at organic food has grown tremendous. And there are reasons which we have kind of analyzed. One is that, if you see the penetration of e-commerce that has increased so much that the consumers they are able to save time and sit at home and decide exactly what's good for them and what's not so good for them. And they can go through the 360 degree of the product sitting on their computer. So that is one aspect. But I would say we have seen a tremendous growth happening in the organic foods per se. A lot of changes that have taken place is about localization. This part of the world, as everybody knows, we are not a green region. This part of the world has started to look at doing green farming, whether it's in the controlled temperature environment. We've got so much of local produce which has started to happen. Like if you go to the retail today, whether to Carrefour or Lulu or anywhere, you would see that there is a section of greens which says and mentions that proudly grown and produced in the UAE or in whichever country we are in across GCC. So there is a lot of trend that has changed from just being an import dependent food consumers to becoming a healthier, fresher, something which could be available to you within 24 hours. It's within 24 hours of it getting plucked from the farms, and so on and so forth. So I think the change, which we have seen primarily, is about people looking at healthier habits, looking at healthier options. As I said, the perception of healthy would continue to remain a subject of debate forever.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me push this a little bit, and I'll ask Ellen to also comment on it later. But in Europe, one does see a lot more veganism, coming up. Is that something that is seen in Middle East also? Vegan food?
Yes, for sure. As I said, that organic, vegan, replacing meats with vegetable options. I think all of that has seen a lot of growth in past. To be precise, while it was already taking a trend like the global trend upwards, but we have seen a tremendous amount of change happening in that in past 18 months, and that trend is growing rapidly.
Ellen, coming to you, you have experience of, if I may say, 2 continents, since you operate both in UK and in South Africa. What's your take on the changing food trends?
Well, what I've seen globally, because we deal pretty much all over the world, and looking at the trends that are going through. If you look at the last 50 years through the US, it used to be a lot of people adding additives, dyes and things into. That is all changing now. It has sped up since the pandemic has hit, where people are now looking for functionality in foods. Has it got a functional benefit for me? And as David said, gut health, mental health, they're all interlinked, and people are looking for products that will make them feel good, lower sugars. They also want indulgent products, but they want something functional with that indulgence. Look at the growth in oat milk, for example. Oat milk in the UK has taken off. You've got some great small producers that are taking on the big guys, and they're growing. These are now being served at baristas, the coffee shops, instead of a milk product. So people are going on that. What you said about veganism, absolutely huge growth. For example, a company, Love Cocoa, by James Cadbury, they launched a product called HIP, Happiness and Plant. That is a chocolate made with oat milk. A lot of other chocolates are made with coconut milk and rice milk. So you're getting this indulgence being able to come through to the consumer. It's less sugar. The other big trend I'm seeing is not just on the product, it's the packaging. Is it sustainable packaging? What message is going out to the consumer on that packaging? So, for example, we're seeing people using NatureFlex as an inner plastic barrier on chocolates and other food stuff, because it's compostable.
Yeah.
And then you're having the biodegradable. So a lot of, there are still businesses that are going out having an organic product and everything else, but they've got plastic. So they lose a little bit in what the trends are taking you towards. So it's more a holistic approach that I'm seeing now on the trends, where people are wanting something that meets all their aspirations in life. The youngsters are very concerned about the environment.
Absolutely. I think you're bang on that, both in terms of the food and the packaging, socially responsible, environment friendly, that's the buzzword in food as well as in the food packaging. So exactly. Tell me, you said people just want to have food that has a functional benefit. At the same time,
yeah.
At the same time,
not
there must
just
be
a functional benefit. They wanted to have a functionality in it. So you could have an apple cider vinegar with honey and turmeric. for example. So you're getting benefits out of that.
No. So what I was saying was that yes, I mean people want, and the now popular thing is that if you eat food which is like medicine, then you don't have to eat medicine like it is food. So it is true that functionality is important, but at the same time, uh, taste is also important. Now, since you are, if I may use the term, an epicurist, are you able to develop foods which have a functionality and yet they are pleasing to the palate as well?
Absolutely. There are so many foods out there that are very palatable. And, you can look at the ingredients on them, and people are becoming more aware of the transparency on a label. They understand labels. And there are fantastic foods out there that are very, very palatable. And they don't have to have all different E numbers in them to get that way. People have changed. If you look at the organic movement 20 years ago, people understood that to be vegetables. They understood a carrot could be organic. They didn't understand a trifle could be organic. And they never bought into that in that stage. That's all changed now. People are looking at organic, that it encompasses all aspects, and it's finished products, desserts. And you can have a perfect dessert that has less sugar in it and no sweetness. Because sometimes you put aspartame into a product that affects a vast number of people. So it's getting a balance, and I think that's where it comes into. Balance is key.
Like you mentioned, chocolates, chocolate which are using milk fat substitutes, and it is using sugar substitutes. So yeah, the healthy chocolates. In fact, I don't think there is any ice cream parlor that opens nowadays if it doesn't have 2 or 3 variants which are sugar free. You raised an important point that consumers are now looking a lot more carefully at the food labels. David, would you say that is true also for your part of the world? People looking at the label, and therefore food manufacturers are having to pay a lot more attention to what is declared on the packaging?
Yeah, there's definitely a segment of the market that's picking a product up, turning it over and having a look on the back. Absolutely, for sure. But the vast majority, a lot of the sort of initial interest in purchasing is from the front of the pack. So the key call-outs, whether it's plant-based or gluten-free or nootropic or whatever it might be, needs to be on the front, loud and clear as well. But I think absolutely people are a lot more interested in the content of the product, and as the guys were saying before, where it's from. The provenance is becoming very, very important as well, and we mentioned local as well. They're all very, very important elements for sure.
So I get the sense from what Ellen is saying, what David is saying, that some of these trends in the food landscape are pretty similar, irrespective of which part of the world you are in. Praful, would you say the same holds for the markets that you operate in, or are there any distinctions when it comes to product preferences or food taste preferences in the markets that you operate?
Well, as I mentioned that, while these markets where I operate in, as compared to the market that Alan and David operate in, I would call them relatively, the wrong choice of word, but I would say that they're still evolving in terms of them being able to reach those levels of mature understanding of what's being declared, what's being written, what really it means, so on and so forth. Just to give you an example, I work with an Australian company and I represent them here in this part of the world. They are into egg products. So when I was in Australia, I was in Brisbane, and whenever Coles and Woolworths I traveled to, I went to, I found that the caged eggs is something which was a very small segment in a supermarket shelf, and at least 90 or 95% would be the cage-free, organic cage-free, and so on and so forth, kind of, more value-added eggs. It's a complete reverse when you come to my part of the world. So if you go to a supermarket, you will find only 5% shelf being given to the organic or cage-free eggs, and 95% still would be the same caged eggs that we're talking about. So I'm saying it's just an example to tell you that we still have a long way to go in terms of evolving ourselves to reach those levels where the global mature markets have reached in terms of understanding of the aspects of the food that we are talking about, whether it's ingredients, whether it's packaging, sustainability. Sustainability still has a long way to reach any, I would say, noticeable levels in this part of the world. We guys are still pretty happy-go-lucky as far as that aspect is concerned. And I really hope that in the coming days we'll be able to change it tremendously. But yeah, there is a change. There is a change, but it's going to take some more time in this part of the world.
I'm just going to make a diversion from my the flow that I had, because there's one viewer who has asked that organic food, because some of you talked about organic food. The organic food certification in India, while it is available, but sometimes you're not too sure whether it's really, and it's an expensive certification. How do you make sure that the food that is being certified as is organic is genuinely organic? Any comments on that?
Well,
probably a problem that Ellen or David may not feel, because I think in Australia, if it says organic, it must be organic.
Well, you need to have the certification body that is accredited. So if there is a certification body in India, such as the Soil Association that you have in the UK, you've got a Soil Association in Europe as well, that those bodies have built up a reputation that they don't just pass anyone. They do stringent tests. They not only test where the raw material comes from, that it's organic, they also check how it is stored. If it is not stored with products that are non-organic. So they take all these levels into account. So they've got a good reputation. And JAS in Japan, for example, has a good reputation for their accreditation process. But a lot of these countries have links into the UK, to Japan, to the US, and such forth. So getting someone that is credible to certify your product.
There is no global body at this point. I think that is something which I think as we go along will need to be looked into as these categories are growing. I'm not sure if there is any global body one body that could certify your product as organic. And so currently the consumers have no other option but to purely get driven by whatever is assigned or whatever has been certified by the product's country of origin. So we just go by that at this point of time, that if it is certified coming from India, certified as organic, it is organic. But there is no
I think looking at the trend, there are a lot of people who are keen on declaring that it is organic. But sometimes it's possible that it is organic also. But there are sometimes claims which are made which are almost laughable. Now, I'll give you an example that you pick up a packet of cashews in Goa, just the raw cashew itself, and there is a big declaration on it, cholesterol free. Now, obviously, a raw cashew will be cholesterol free. Where is the cholesterol coming in an agricultural product from? Unless you are frying it in animal fat. So anyway, those declarations come, but Coming back to our core topic, uh, there are, I'm sure, a lot of aspiring food entrepreneurs who are either already on today's show or will watch this later. And for their benefit, I would like to ask the three of you that what would you suggest these young food entrepreneurs, what kind of process should they follow to identify the developments in consumer preferences? So, from your own experience, what process have you followed or like to guide people to follow? David?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. I think there's a couple of key things here. I think, the trends that we're talking about here are really important, but they are only really clues as to, what could be next, and, use the trends to understand where the gaps in the market lie today and in the future, because ultimately, as we know, it's a very competitive, very busy market, lots of enormous amount of new entrepreneurs coming in, everyone being laid off and made redundant around the world in the last 18 months. And it's a very low barrier to entry to actually create a brand, but it's very hard to succeed. So really, really take the time, really understand who your primary consumer is, and, really focus on and be very honest with yourself around developing a product and a brand that's going to fill a gap in the market. So differentiate, because being better isn't good enough anymore. Second point, brand, very important. We spoke about packaging, but there's a lot more to a great brand than the packaging. We've spoken about the purpose piece and the sustainability piece. And, I say to people, take your product away. What does your brand stand for? It's very, very important. And, probably the most important part, which often gets left behind, is you really need to have a low-cost operation to enable yourself to be competitive in the marketplace. So really understand your financial model and the retailers and the distributors' financial model, because everyone's out there to get a piece of your margin. And it's very common for entrepreneurs to be operating for 2, 3, 4 years before they realise that it's financially very hard or almost impossible. Couple of other quick ones. You mentioned it, Raj, taste, especially in the health food segment. And I liked what Alan was saying. It's true. I think we've come a long way in the last couple of years on taste, but I do still think, even in the, this is just my opinion, in the plant-based meat and plant-based chicken area, it really is light years off, the juicy steak, I must say. And in other health food areas, I've seen, some adaptogenic herbal drinks. The branding is great and the product is a great idea, but, virtually undrinkable. And the last one is bloody hard work, right? You need a lot of energy, and it's relentless. You need to be persistent and patient. And, that'll be my recommendations.
Okay. Ellen, what would you add to this?
Yeah, I would say it's looking at, for example, how James Cadbury got to create happiness and plant product was a very interesting story, because with the trend going on to oat milks, they couldn't find a vegan chocolate, and all their staff was going more onto oat milks, and they were looking for something that could deliver a good taste, a lower sugar, higher in cocoa. And that's where they came across this gap in the market, and they've developed it. And they've built a business from starting in April on this particular brand into a £6 million business from April to now. And it's gone into 11 countries. So we're taking it into further countries now, but it's because it meets a demand. There's a story behind it. There's a passion behind it, and it's single origin, but it meets the requirements in terms of outer packaging, internal packaging. You look at that, as David said earlier, what's it say on the out and the front packaging? It tells you what it is. You don't have to sit into the back to look. But on the back, there's transparency. Everything
I have been
about
approached.
it is transparent for the consumer, because remember what food is going to people, not people to food. That's another trend that's happened. With the pandemic, it's exacerbated. How many people buy off the Amazon and everything else and have foods delivered? So they're selecting a product off an image. So look at what, as entrepreneurs, need to look at the whole package. As David said, look at your costs, your value chain, understand it, your route to market. Is it a hybrid route to market, or are you going direct to a retailer because you don't have sufficient margin to be able to have a product being competitive? It's not always easy to take organic products because the cost of them, cost of organic farming is higher than normal farming, because you've got to have barriers between farms in case there's contamination. You can lose a whole crop because someone sprays something and the wind was blowing. So you can lose your whole crop. So there's a reason there's a cost differential in that. But consumers do want to pay a certain amount. They will not pay over the top, but they will pay a certain premium, not excessively. That's what the entrepreneur needs to understand in the mind. And they also need to understand, because they like the product does not mean to say everyone else will. It's being realistic about what your product can do and what it will deliver.
So I have two quick remarks on this. First of all, a young startup entrepreneur came to me here in India. He had developed a lot of chocolates where they were sweetened with stevia, and because the cocoa content was pretty high, like 70%, I just couldn't make out that the sweetening has been done by stevia. There was absolutely no off taste. It was a beautiful taste. So yeah, but an important point that you brought up. I mean, in fact, I was going to ask that is the consumer of today willing to pay any price if they think that the product is healthy? Is price not a consideration if the product is healthy?
Price is, it depends on your wealth. Okay, that's one element to look at. If you're wealthy, price doesn't matter. If it's a trendy product, you want it because it's trendy. If you're looking at it on a health aspect and you believe it's good for your family, you will spend a certain amount of premium. But you've also got to live. You've got to feed your family. So it's always a balance. So just because you say it's healthy, it doesn't mean to say you can put the price up to a ridiculous amount. You've got to look at what is competitive in the market, but you also cannot sell the product at a loss. So you've got to make a margin. But if you've got a point of difference that the consumer is prepared to take, and it is not a finite thing. It all depends on an individual circumstance as to what it is. But it's like a house. If I've got £300,000 to buy a house and I like that house, I'll spend it. If I've only got 250, I'll have to look at something else.
So let me use what you said to coin a slogan. If you are wealthy, you can eat healthy. So, Praful, you have been, in fact, in the business of developing products to fulfill the needs of the market that you operate in. What process do you follow to innovate these products based on the consumer preferences that you identify? What process do you follow?
So, primarily the the initiation of anything that starts off will have to happen. And as I'll pick a few words from what David said. that there ought to be a need gap that you need to identify if you really want to bring in certain uniqueness to your product. And that's where we specialize in. I pick only those products that carry certain amount of uniqueness in them. So the moment you identify a need gap, the next step in your process comes is, again, who your TGs are. And on the basis of that uniqueness and the TGs is when the pricing strategy comes into play. I don't call anything expensive. I don't call anything cheap. I feel every product that is being priced at a level has been priced with these certain TGs in mind. And that's the reason that you would see from the most luxury brands. So you've got Rolls-Royce, and you also have the normal basic cars as well, which have been made for common people. So it all depends who your target segments are, where you want to position your product, and that is where you bring in certain amount of premiumness. Even in these lower segments, you can add certain amount of premiumness if you are able to capture that uniqueness, that you are able to capture that need gap that exists in that particular segment. And that's where you position yourself and take your product forward. I don't think anybody, if you are being realistic, nobody will call you expensive. Nobody will call you cheap, because you are catering to the TGs that you have defined from the day one of your category. Yes, I would like to price and position my product at a point of time where I could capture the next level fence sitters admiration as well, and that's how I price my products. That I want, if I'm positioning it at a socioeconomic class A and A plus, I would like it to be priced in such a way that a little bit of a stretch, my SEC B or B plus people are also able to grab and kind of experience. And I call them the fence sitters, who I can convert later on into when they have a higher disposable income to try me out. And if they like my product, as Alan said, that if it's slightly expensive, perceived expensive product, but it is good for me, it is good for my family, or simply just the taste, I like it so much that I would like to have it, and I will compromise somewhere else in my budget, but I would still want this product to come in. I think these are certain factors which need to be taken into account when you are.
It's an interesting point you make when you say that I will compromise on my budget elsewhere. As Arihant said, I worked in Nestle for many years. We know that the infant milk formula that Nestle used to make, it was expensive. It was normally aimed at the upper middle income group as far as India is concerned. However, we do know that there were lots of people from the lower income group who also wanted to buy the infant milk formula of Nestle, because they said that when it comes to our child's health and nutrition, we will not compromise. We will cut somewhere else, but we want to give him the best. And something which is not supposed to be done, but the retailers used to open a 400-gram pack and put 100 grams into 4 poly packs and then sell it to them, because these people could only afford to buy 100 grams a day. Next day they will go and earn another 200 rupees and again come back for the next 100 grams. So those kind of things have to be done. I think in fact, at this stage, want to bring another point. I mean, we have talked about the food innovation to meet the changing consumer trends. We also talked about the packaging innovations that have to be brought about to suit the changing requirements or preferences of the consumer. I think there is a need to also modulate the communication strategy, be it the communication on the packaging. How do you hit it straight away, as Ellen was just showing in that pack, and also in whatever communication you are making in your advertising, etc. So, what key points do you feel must be borne in mind while developing the communication strategy? David, let me start with you.
Yeah, look, I think it's really, number one, really teasing out, as we've said, your key points of difference. What are the key points of difference that are going to resonate with consumers? and buyers for that matter, so B2B and B2C. And then, it's no secret that a really robust digital marketing, social media strategy is really key with, building a community and really optimizing the reach and frequency of those key messages. And that's probably more important today than ever before. We spoke about LinkedIn earlier on from a B2B and even a B2C point of view. Obviously, I know this is not,
No, that's of course as far as the media strategy is concerned, but in terms of the message itself, I think Ellen was rightly showing us that chocolate where the front fascia of the pack itself clearly says what are the features, I mean, I know for instance that in our Sattviko products, we would say, whatever it is, the gluten free, the fat free, all those things, straight up. So Ellen, I saw you picking up a pack probably to demonstrate to us how the communication on the package can be.
Okay, for example, Dr. Stewart's teas. There's a product that's an immunity product. Very standout packaging. It's organic, immunity. It tells you what it's for. You can turn around the back and everything's there. There's also a story about Dr. Malcolm Stewart, who developed these herbal teas. David will know the Higher Living brand.
What I really love about this packaging, what I really love about that packaging that you showed was its simplicity, the uncluttered main panel. Just getting across the brand name and what it delivers.
Yeah. Here's another example. This is a company in Tanzania. They do organic farming. They put back into the community. That's called Wild Plains. So there you've got something, you've got banana, it's part of your 5 a day. You've added cocoa to it. It's got no sulfates. It's very clear on the pack. It's something different. And they've got a range of products. Same company in Tanzania, it's with Dow. One of the other trends, Baobab powder. Organic, everything is on there. The packaging is compostable. So they've gone a long way. The backpacking, they've got the USDA, they've got their Soil Association accreditation on there. Very simple, easy to use pack. And that's a small business in Tanzania, but they've gone that extra route to do it. They've also done it simply on supplements. They've taken this to the next level. So they don't just have dried fruits, they've got powders, they're gluten-free stuff, and then they've got supplements. Also, it's very simple packaging, but it says what it is on there.
Yeah.
Very simple. And the fact they also put in the little story about what they give back to the community for providing water in the areas. Another thing is having a backstory. Like Willie's has got a 300-year-old orchard, organic orchard for the apples. It's very simple.
Praful, do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, basically the product packaging. So there are primarily your product speaks to your consumers at 2 different levels. One is when the product is on the shelf, and second is when the product is seen in other mediums. Today, whatever we do in terms of our packaging or in terms of design, in terms of communication, is something we will have to be omni-channel. We will have to keep that in mind, and we can't simply ignore the fact that consumers today would be actually virtually experiencing your product. They may not necessarily have the opportunity, or they may not necessarily want to go to the supermarket or wherever to physically pick up your products. So you need to be extremely, I would say, smart in terms of being able to communicate that in that moment when the product pops up on a screen, does it really communicate and grab the attention of those seconds of the consumers to excite them enough so that they can make a purchase decision at that point of time. I think that's become most important, and what Ellen is showing is an extremely good work done because it has got all that impactful clarity on the word go itself, and it attracts your eye. So a consumer eye has to be caught for consumer to spend some time, whether on shelf or online, to pick up product.
It's having the right influencer you know, you can go and use influencers and you get the wrong one.
Yeah.
In Australia currently, Higher Living is doing a big campaign. I don't know if you've seen it, David, where they've actually created these drink cups with Higher Living and then the Rooibos tea. And they've used the right influencers, the right media, and it's having a big surge. So it's utilizing all those things. Just because a person, let's say, is a Bollywood actor, if they're not known outside of India, well, that influencer is not going to have that effect. And it's having the right one. But you've got to use your social media. You've got to use those influencers, because that's what's also helping create trends.
I'm glad you clarified that you were having rooibos tea. I would have thought that was whiskey. But anyway, to get to the last question from my side, and then we'll move on to the audience question. Maybe very quickly, if each one of you could say that, you know, and again, I'm addressing the young Indian food entrepreneurs. What suggestion would you give to them, to to the Indian food entrepreneur who wishes to enter the developed markets like the European markets or the Oceania markets or even North American markets? What would be your guidance to them?
Start with me, Raj.
Yeah. A for Australia goes first.
I think we've spoken about a lot of it tonight. I think, you know, number one, obviously do your research, you know, really understand where your product and brand can fill a gap in the market, you know, understand which markets are easier and or more difficult to enter, definitely. And, you know, get help, obviously. I mean, anyone in India or any part of the world trying to export into another country, it is much easier if you had a good pair of hands on the other side. And yeah, be persistent and have a lot of energy.
Okay, Praful?
Well, if you are specifically asking, and let me tell you, Rasa, this specific question is very close to my heart. And I interact very closely with the upcoming Indian entrepreneurs, and I'm very happy to see the way brands like Sattviko have come up. You know, what is really required, and that is a question that I have in one of the sessions with Sattviko only. I'd mentioned again that they need to really define before they go international. That do they really? Why do they want to go international? That's the first question that they need to answer. And once they have answered that question is when they will need to start assessing themselves, whether they have the capability, capacity, as well as sustainability to sustain the pressures of the international markets, which are very different from our own country. You know, my first perspective is when anyone comes and says that, you know, I want to be in Middle East or I want to be in Europe or any other country, my first question to them is, have you really covered India well? Because India is not a country, it's a continent. You know, it's very difficult in one lifetime to be able to see the entire country and understand the versatility and the vast offerings that the country has. So what is selling in? So something like what Sattviko has done. You know, you picked up a khakra, which is primarily eaten in the western part of the country, and you have made it go not only across the country in India, but you have made it go global. I think these are the kind of varieties, these are the kind of versatile offerings that our country has on offer. I would say pick them up, pick the need gap that exists in the different regions of the country, fulfill them and look at them. Once you have really mastered that art and you say that in all aspects of business, 360 degree, you are ready to go global, is when you should step your foot out. Otherwise, keep learning in there, keep expanding in there. We are a 135 crores, 1.3 billion people living in the country. You have enough and more to for the local consumption to be able to sustain your business. And once you have reached that critical mass where you think that you have the capacities to go global, please go global. Don't go for the fancy stuff. And I've seen enough and more people failing when trying to go global in without having the enough experience as well as the capacities to be able to sustain those pressures.
No, good point. Absolutely good point. Ellen, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think don't try and rush out and get as many countries to tick off a number. Look at specific countries, target them, research them, interview the distributor. If you're going the distributor route, interview them. Don't sign up to the first person who wants to give you an order. Don't sign up on an agency agreement without thinking it through. Rather utilize things like heads of agreements where you've got a get out clause. It's your brand. You own it. You set parameters for what you want to achieve with it. Do not give away your brand uniqueness by letting someone else do marketing for that brand. They have to get approval for the utilization and how your brand is utilized in the country. Because you can detract from your key messages by someone else doing something else there. So keep those controls in it, and you will find the right partner that will work with you. And that's what it's about. It's a partnership. You work through it. But all good things have the exit clauses in there. Good fences make good neighbors. Have a good exit clause if you need it. That doesn't mean to say you're starting with failure in mind. It's not. It's actually protecting your business 5 years down. So you've got to work with people who understand that and can guide you. And there are lots of people out there that can do that, and very good people specialists in their sectors that can help. As David said, ask for help. Yeah.
It's been a wonderful discussion, but we're running out of time. I'm going to quickly read out the questions that are there on the chat. I already asked Sundar Rajani's question about organic. Chengappa says, as mentioned, these trends are mainly just clues to identify the movement of the market. So to stay on top of these trends, apart from analyzing actual market performances, are there any other ways, sources to use to stay updated with these trends? So is there anything other than your own personal research in the market? Any way to keep you abreast of the trends?
Look at what your competitors are doing. Look at what you can pick the trends up on social media, on Google and things like that. So just keep abreast of that and look what your competitors are up to.
I have a lady here, Kanika, who is manufacturing gluten-free cookies made from banana flour. So she wants to know how's the potential for green banana flour in international markets. It's gluten-free, plant-based, great for gut health, high in dietary fiber, and has wide levels of food application, especially in baking. I'm going to confess, I had not even heard so far till just now that you could actually make flour out of green banana. So very interesting. She's the founder of a brand called Nikan brand.
Yeah. Can she send me some? I sound really delicious.
Yeah. Really, it seems like a very unique proposition, and it could become the next Indian makhana for all you know. So must
No, I think all the right things that she has said. Plant-based, of course, gluten-free, great for gut health. Kanika, you are on the show right now. Would you like to unmute and tell us, do you have any certification that it is good for gut health?
Hi everyone, I'm Kanika. So we have done all the possible testings like with the best NABH accredited labs. So we have the dietary fiber reports with us and all the basic nutrients reports and of course all the licenses. They're already selling it in UK, US and Canada, the banana flour on the Amazon. So currently we are doing only on Amazon. And over here in India, we are listed on Nature's Basket as one of the premium stores. And other than that, we are selling in India on the e-commerce level, like on.
No. So I mean, that you now started advertising the product, which was not the intention. What
Yeah.
I wanted to know was that how are you claiming that it is good for gut health? What certification have you got for that?
So dietary fiber is one. So basically, green bananas are rich in dietary fiber, which acts like a prebiotic for your gut health.
Mhm.
So it helps your intestine to work. And then I think David was speaking about the gut health in the initial session. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay, good. I love the way you've done your branding, where Neh is in Hindi or Sanskrit and Khan in English.
yes.
Um, Sundar Hemrajani has another question. He says there has been a drive towards sustainable packaging, but it's still a bit slow. How to accelerate? I think Ellen did make some reference to that. Uh, Ellen, do you have any suggestion how to accelerate sustainable packaging?
Yes, there is a vast, you've got to first look at your product, the application of your product, how it would fit in sustainable packaging as well, because not all products are necessarily suitable for a particular type of packaging. So look at your product, look at the technical specifications of plastic. So if you're going to use NatureFlex, for example, which is a wood-based plastic, as it were, you've got to look at how your finished product would react to it. So there's obviously some technical elements in that. But if all is good, then you can use that. There are other potato starch-based wrappers as well. They do tend to compost a bit quicker than the NatureFlex ones. So you might have a problem where it starts decomposing, depending on what shelf life you've given your product. You've also got to look at packaging that, for example, if you've got a product that's got an oil base on it, let's say potato crisp, for example, you will get light oxidization, which will affect your product. So if you have a laminated packaging and look for a laminated packaging that is sustainable, then do that. But it's going to take research. There are products on the market, but research what your application is, how it affects your product.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time, so I'm not going to be able to open the floor for any questions. Last word from all of you. Quickly, if in one word or one phrase you wanted to describe the current food trend. Rapid fire. David?
Evolving at pace.
Praful?
Craving convenience.
Ellen?
Exciting.
Great. And again, a phrase for your advice to the startups in the same order.
Yeah. Patience.
Praful?
Adapt the new normal.
Ellen?
Do your research.
Great. What channel should they rely upon? Brick and mortar, e-commerce?
It's product specific, really. If it's the type of product that you're doing, one of the trends is food to home, not going from home to get food. So if e-commerce does encompass that, but a lot of people, even the stores, bricks and buildings, are still delivering to homes. So consider that element of it.
Yeah. So in US, I believe Amazon has overtaken Walmart in terms of, yeah.
By a long way.
By a long way. Okay, great. And which consumer segment would you, really aim at first? Again, this is for the startups.
Again, I think what Alan just said, it is obviously product specific, but if you're in the health food premium end, then it's obviously, affluency, definitely.
Okay, great. Praful?
Yeah, it all, as I said, that, I think Alan and David have very clearly said that it is a very product specific. So it all depends who your TGs are. Simple as that.
Okay, wonderful. So much against my wishes, and I'm sure that of the others who are on the show. We have to end it here. So thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you guys, and we will be in touch. Arihant, over to you.
Right. Thank you, Raj sir, for such a great session, and thank you to all the speakers for sparing out the time to discuss on the issues. It was a great session. I hope a lot of people got inspired and learned a lot from here. I would like to thank all the viewers and the participants to come in as well for participating in the sessions. Stay in touch. You can watch this video on YouTube on our Sattviko channel once you subscribe in by end of the day evening. And let's keep in touch for more updates.